Hey, how you doing? Brian Cain, host of the Mental Performance Mastery podcast here, and I couldn't be more excited to welcome my guest, the co-founder and developer of Therasage, Robby Besner. Now, Robby's created 4 modalities that I use on a daily basis: the Therafrost Cold Plunge, the TheraPro PEMF mat, the Therasana red light infrared sauna, and the Thera H2O water filter that I'll use on a daily basis. And I have noticed personal gains myself when it comes to increased HRV, more quality sleep as measured by deep and REM sleep, and just overall feeling better as I go throughout the day. One of the ways that I use the cold plunge is in that mid-afternoon, around that noon, 1 o'clock, where I might feel a little dip of energy. Instead of going to the caffeine like I have done for years, the pre-workout, the coffee, the energy drink, whatever it is, I go spend 3 minutes in the cold plunge. I come back and I'm locked in for the rest of the day. So super excited to have Robby Besner join us to talk about Therasage, their story, how he got involved as a developer and product creator, and going into a deeper dive on the science and the protocols behind the products that I use that I think that you should do. Let's take a listen. Robby Besner. And couldn't be more excited to break down on today's podcast. I've got my friend, the co-founder and device developer of Therasage, Robby Besner. Robby, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share some of my wisdom with your community.
Yeah, and I've been a huge fan of you and Therasage for years, since I got introduced by Dr. Sean Drake out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And personally, I use the Therafrost cold plunge. I use the TheraPro PMF mat. I use the sauna, and I use the water filter that you all have. So I'm all in on Therasage, and I think you guys are really on the cutting edge of kind of this, recovery movement. And I think for our listeners, it'd be really cool, because this is something I don't know, so I'm interested in this, is kind of the story of Therasage and how you came to, create the brand and create the products that are delivering health and recovery performance around the world.
Great. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that. It's non-traditional, Brian. We didn't have venture capital. We didn't have a business plan. What we had was our oldest daughter contracted chronic Lyme disease. And I have a medical background, science, physics, a little engineering and business background. And I started to unpack the way that she was presenting herself, and she had high levels of toxicity, inflammation, some cognitive challenges, pain challenges. And when I kind of unpacked the way that she was expressing herself, I focused on toxicity. I did some deep science, some research, deep research on it. And I became to understand the relationship between toxicity, inflammation, and the way that the body expresses itself or as a symptom per se. And so the first 15 years, our company is basically 23 years old to date. And the first 15 years, we were focusing on Lyme disease, infectious chronic challenges, cancer, autoimmune, things like that. It's only been the last 10 to 12 years that we started focusing on optimal health. And so it's kind of pretty easy for us to move the dial on and the needle on people that are sick and get them back on the recovery thing. But it's a whole bunch different to talk about maintaining the resilience recovery of a Tom Brady, of many of the high-end athletes, even the wannabe, athletes that we are dealing with in our current day. And actually, I'm enjoying that area so much more because it's more fun for me to keep people healthy and keep dialing up that optimal health, best version of themselves at any given stage in their lives. And so it all is in our technology. And so what we discovered was that there's actually wavelengths of natural sunlight. It's the infrared spectrum that will actually mobilize all the toxins in your body. And now going back 25 years ago, when we started doing the research on it, infrared was only being used in the athletic arena by sports medicine doctors to help the players heal faster. So they did that along with other interventions to lower their pain, get their recovery, get them back on the field. And so I kind of tuned into that. But then when I looked around at the available devices that were on the market then for the mainstream public, there really weren't any. And so I organized a trip to China. I visited 65 factories. I found 2 I wanted to work with. And then I started developing devices mostly for our own personal use. At that point, remember, 25 years ago, we didn't have telemedicine. We didn't have all the the relationships that we have today in the way that doctors can basically work virtually. Then we had a Lyme literate doctor that was in New York. We were living down in Florida. We had a pain specialist, a psychiatrist, a general practitioner. I mean, we had a host of doctors, which is very common. And so I took the position of kind of becoming my daughter's sort of personal nurse and for home health care. And we discovered that basically harnessing these frequencies really got her back on track to health, because it lowered her pain threshold, number one. It actually mobilized the toxins, so we were lowering her blood toxicity, which actually lowered her inflammation in her body. So even though she still had challenges with Lyme, her quality of life was so improved. And that really resonated with all of her practitioners, who then asked for us to start to make these devices for their practices. And that was kind of the genesis, non-traditional genesis of our company.
Mm. Awesome. Awesome story, man. And, I think I love the idea around optimal health on the front side and sort of recovery on the backside, and I think so many times, at least I know from personal experience, and whether it be with myself or people that I get the privilege of coaching and working with, is too much time goes into the rehab, not enough into the prehab, too much into the rehab and the recovery, not enough into, no, I'm going to proactively, get into a cold tank and use a sauna and use PMF and these different recovery modalities that you have created to stay on the field, to not get injured. So, what I'd like to do is just kind of dive into, from speaking maybe to our audience, which would be an athletic population. So think about professional athletes, coaches that you're speaking with. Some of the modalities that you've created, how can they best implement that into their routines to stay on the field and stay recovered? Maybe starting with, the Therafrost, which is the inflatable cold tank that I think is tremendous. And I've got one and looking to get a second one.
Okay, well, first off, just to kind of put things in context,
Yeah.
over the years in clinical research, like biological research, bioresearch, we've discovered that the sequencing that you do your various different protocols and the way that you dose the protocol can make all the difference in the result.
Hmm.
So, for instance, like you talk about the cold plunge or the immersion tank called the Therafrost, is one of our latest innovations. And I love it because it's got a beautiful contrast with all the infrared frequencies and the heat therapies. So you can do heat and cold contrast therapy, which then those kinds of stimulants, the way that the body works is it actually will accelerate almost 10x the biological effect, which is, for you, like you're in that, total high-end optimal category, right? And so let's just do a simple analogy. If you go to the gym and you do a certain workout, let's say the routine is Mondays are legs and Wednesdays are back and Fridays are arms. If you get into that routine of just doing that routine and using the same kinds of exercises, you'll have a very steep curve of acceleration in the way your body is going to respond to it initially. But then it sort of starts to flatten out.
Plateau, yeah.
Because the body remembers that routine. And in order for you to break up or to create that steep curve, you have to constantly be tricking the body and changing up that routine so it's not in that muscle memory fashion. And so by creating certain protocols, and our protocols are very interesting, Brian, because I study nature and I study the way that the body and the physiology responds to nature. And so, for instance, like the infrared sauna represents sunlight, and the way that the body wakes up in the morning is basically, and our biological clocks, our circadian rhythms are timed around the lunar cycle, the moon cycle, and the sun cycle. And so when we rise in the morning, when that sun rises, it wakes up our bodies and stimulants, right? And so there's a little gland in your brain that's called the pineal gland. And what it does is it produces a hormone called two hormones, serotonin and melatonin. Melatonin relaxes you. So when the sun sets at night and the light shifts, the pineal gland senses that shift and starts producing melatonin that quiets the brain down, gets you into kind of from that sympathetic dominance, that fight and flight, that anxious, to parasympathetic where you're calmer. Then you move into the theta state, and then eventually, hopefully, the delta and REM state where you have restorative. And this is super important because many of the athletes that we're talking to today and the trainers, they get their lifestyles are broken up. They go on the road, they're sleeping in hotels, they're not eating regular foods, their cycles are off, their sleep cycles are off. And when they're in competition, if we can maintain their constitution of their sleep cycle by doing things like cold plunge and sauna and the PEMF mat, like we'll be talking about today, then we can maintain the constitution of their biological clocks. And so their recoveries, they're stronger, they're getting deeper sleeps, their bodies or their brains are producing growth hormones when they're in that REM state. If they don't get that restorative sleep, then they don't get that recovery, then they wake up tired. They got to hit the field again. They're not quite as 100% or 110% that they would normally give to the team and to their sport. And so back to the plunge. We created a amazing device. It's a portable immersion tank. You can inflate it. It comes delivered, as you know, in like almost like a knapsack, right? Both the top and the top itself. And then there is an accompanied chiller mechanism that is very strongly powered at 1 horsepower. It brings the water temperature down to 37 degrees and holds it constant. It has 2 filtration systems. We actually immerse ozone into the water every 20 minutes for 3 minutes, and that keeps the water sanitized. And the thing that is probably the most unique of our technology is we have a chip that we developed that will actually restructure the water that you're immersing in, which influences the water that's in your body, which gives better cell communication. Brian, quite frankly, we get sick on a cell level and we heal on a cell level. So everything we can do to support cell health and cell methylation is going to make us the strongest, the most resilient, and on all levels. So yeah, that Frost is an amazing device.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I do want to go back to one thing you mentioned about the sequencing and the duration of the various therapies. So I heard you kind of go down and talk about the red light in the morning in the sauna simulates some of the red light that you would get off of the sun. So would you suggest, talk about that sequencing? Would you be red light in the morning, cold plunge before bed? Because I've been doing that opposite. So maybe I'm getting that wrong.
Yeah.
How,
Okay, no. I think there really isn't a wrong way. What there is an optimal way.
Yeah.
And just for, just to lay it out to everybody listening today, if I had a choice choosing between what comes natural or within my lifestyle or what's practical versus optimal, I'll always direct you towards practical. Because, for instance, if you were a truck driver and you get up at 4 a.m. and really the best time to do infrared sauna is earliest part of the day, right? So the truck driver gets up at 4, this happened just last week. He said to me, Robby, I can't get up at 3 to do my sauna. Well, Joe, when can you do it? And he says to me, well, I get home around 5, I had dinner, then I usually sit down and relax. So we figured out that 6 or 7 o'clock is the most practical time for him to do it.
Yeah.
Now, optimally, why do I want you in the morning? Because again, remember, if we date back 8,000 years ago in the days of Jesus, Moses, and Buddha, right? We woke up, we lived on the land, we lived in tents, we lived in caves. We basically woke up to sunlight. That stimulant shifts your pineal gland. It starts to turn off the production of melatonin, which quiets your body down, starts producing another hormone called serotonin that is more of a stimulant. So that wakes up all of your systems. Now, is it ultra critical that you do sauna first thing? No, but if you had a choice and that could work into your lifestyle, that would be your optimal choice to do it first thing. Now, in terms of sequencing between the frost, meaning the cold immersion, and the hyper raising your core temperature, hypothermia. Okay, that's pretty interesting to me because the players, when they come off the field, generally they're inflamed because they've been overworking their muscle groups, whatever activity they're doing. And so they've got inflammation just from that alone. Plus, they're in the process of overworking muscles in their activity, in their sport. They're also creating what's called a free radical. And they're also, through motion, they're also mobilizing toxins that are in their bodies. And so So for them to go into cold immersion first, quiets their body down, quiets that inflammation down. You get, as you know, we teach about getting into the breath. So setting intentions and doing breath work along with that response in the 2 to 4 minutes or 5 minutes that you might be immersing is really a great way to get your mind in tuned, get into the breath, enjoy that moment, and then get all the benefits of that cryo activity that's going on in lowering your core, which there is so much great science on that. So that, I love that. And then when you come out of the immersion, in this instance, you jump into the sauna. Now we're raising the constitution of your temperature again. There is, I don't know if you've experienced this when you plunge. When you come out, do you ever get into a shiver or a tremor response?
Oh yeah.
You have that?
Yeah.
Okay. We're now doing emotional healing that we're tying to that tremor response. So imagine, like you hold on to emotions, you hold on to anger. If you're a player sometimes, and this is, your area of expertise, how much emotional content gets into the head part of the game, right? Into that being in the moment and being, like in the breath, so to speak, in your activity. Well, when you're holding on to negative thoughts, or maybe, like you're not quite in the rhythm or in synchronized as you normally do, a lot of it has to do with your emotional part. It could be, from your home life. It could be, just the normal pressures of even being in the sport, as you know, right? Well, imagine when you come out of that immersion and you're in there and you're in the sauna and you're getting back to your core temperature and now you're shaking up a little bit. Imagine tying some of your emotions that you're holding inside to that tremor and almost kind of like shaking it loose, right? Shaking that anger loose, letting it go. It's incredible what kind of transformation we're getting in terms of therapy. So it's not just about immersion, it's about that whole cold therapy experience and tying these various different other techniques to it in order for you to really dial up that optimal experience and your health.
So then so what I'm hearing you say there, Robby, is that it would be okay to go cold plunge and then into the sauna if that fit into your PM routine, where you could do it. For example, this truck driver is not going to get up before 4 a.m. so he can sauna, but when he gets home after dinner, he could go cold and then sauna, and that would work from a practicality standpoint.
Exactly. Yeah, that would certainly work.
From an
Now,
optimal standpoint, what would you suggest? Would you suggest optimally that you go sauna in the morning and cold at night?
well, again, it depends on your goals. Like practically speaking, when players are on the field, they're in competition. They just, played a game today. They got to get ready for a game tomorrow. So we already know that their bodies and muscles groups have been overworked. Their joints have been overworked. So there, I would recommend the cold plunge and then follow up with the heat therapy or the contrast of using sauna afterwards.
Yep.
In a normal routine, I'm a cyclist. So what I do in the morning is I get up and I do my breath work. I get into sauna. I raise my core temperature, but I don't do my full detox during that time because I know just after I do sauna and warm up. So meaning when I warm up, and I'm only doing it, by the way, it takes, for the normal average adult, it takes about maybe 8 to 10 minutes of infrared sauna to get enough of the light therapy in the body to actually start a physiological event, meaning increasing blood flow, increasing oxygen level, warming up your structural system, warming up your muscles and your tendons, connective tissues, so that you're less likely to injure yourself. So a great protocol is doing sauna for just a sort of warm up, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, then do your workout, do your competition. For me, I get on my bike and I ride 10 miles. And then when I come back, now that movement, that activity has also mobilized toxins in my body. By the way, remember earlier, as I was explaining about my daughter's experience, toxicity and inflammation are tied together. So now we know that the environment that we're living in, the air, the water, the food that we're eating, it's got toxins in it. Even if you eat organic and you have great filtered water there, you can't help it. There's glyphosates, there's stuff that the body is holding on to. And that is really the number one thing that I think that the optimal health category needs to focus on, because you can't optimally perform if your body is sick, if your body is toxic, right? And so removing toxins or having that in a protocol with sauna and cold plunge, and even using the PEMF mat, as well as even some of the food choices you take that help the body detoxify, is I think is crucial for us to be investigating in order for us to really dial up our optimal self on the field or even at home. So I think that that's key.
Nice. Talk more about, you've mentioned the TheraFrost. We've talked about the Therasana, the red light sauna that you can get in. I like that you can pop your head and your hands out, because if there's times I want to get in there, and I love stacking habits, right? So for me to get in a sauna, like I had the old wooden box sauna, I'd be sweating all over my book, or my phone would shut down. And I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of here. But as I'm in the sauna now, especially with 2 kids, and I can pop my head out and pop my hands out and sit in the sauna, I can do my reading, I can be on the phone, I could do a call if I needed to, and my phone's not overheating and the book's not getting covered in sweat. But then I can also zip it and tuck my hands in and actually sit in the sauna, whoop, and pull the thing over my head, and sit in there and get full total body in there, and I'm about 6'2". So, there's definitely more space for guys a little bit bigger than me to get in there to do that too. The other device that I have that I've been sitting on and using is the TheraPro, and the red light PMF Intens unit mat. Could you kind of unpack the science behind the PMF? Because one of the questions that I know people will ask is, hey, I can feel when I get in the cold, I get cold and I shiver. I can feel when I get in the sauna and I'm sweating. I can see the red lights. But when I sit on the PMF mat, I don't feel myself getting shocked like I might on a different brand PMF mat. Could you explain sort of the technology there,
Right.
what's actually happening at a cellular level?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. And there are different systems, PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic fields. There are different systems out there. We chose to take a very particular road for a few reasons. Number one is cost. So we like to keep our costs down, and we like the portability aspect of it. So many of the bigger systems out there, like our system, the one that you talk about that's on the chair, retails around $500, and then we have a full size mat that's about a little less than 900. But we're comparing that mat to which is 1,000 Gauss, so it's relatively well powered, to a $40,000 to $50,000 unit that has 8,000 Gauss. So it's 8 times more powerful, but it's also designed to be sort of in a clinic or under the guidance of a specialist like yourself or Dr. Drake, where they can actually dial in the proper calibration that serves the purpose in a clinic. And of course, remember, the doctor like yourself, you may only have your player or the patient for a half hour. You do a circuit, so you may have them longer when you're doing the circuit. But for Dr. Drake, you may have them for a half hour, 45 minutes. So he's looking to stack a whole bunch of different biohacks in a row to try to move that patient through that player through the system to optimize and dial it up. Our approach is sort of a lower and slower approach. It's a low dose, not a high dose. We don't have to charge that much money. The 1,000 Gauss is more than ample. We know that any player out there it's safe. And what we did was, where on the infrared, it's a 6-in-1 therapy pad. So there's 6 different modalities in one device, which is unique in itself. The PMF, there are 2 roads to go there. You can pulse a full range, what's called full spectrum PEMF or electromagnetic fields, or you can do what we did, where we identified very particular hertz or very particular frequencies, and then we pulse those. So we cherry picked 8 different frequencies that do different things, and we pulse those. And then we have a 9th function, which basically does a random 6-second like sort of view or snapshot of each of the different PEMFs or electromagnetic fields. And again, some of them will calm the body down, some of them will stimulate you, and then some of them are designed for acute or chronic pain challenges. And you can dance around these different, dial in exactly what you're looking to try to achieve and marry that to the exact function on the PEMF. And then you can just set it, forget it, it goes through its cycle. It's really, truly an amazing pad. That's on the PEMF side. Now, your point is well taken, because these frequencies, like infrared frequencies, are invisible to the eye. So how do you know that they exist? Well, there are meters and calibrations. And one thing that everybody listening today should know, we're a medically guided company. That means that most of our devices have been listed with the FDA as class 2 medical devices. Many of our, and initially the first 15 years, we have more than 10,000 practitioners that we have interacted with over the years at our company. And so they're putting their licenses on the line, just like you. You've gone to school, you've gotten credentials. You know, when you stand behind our products, it humbles me greatly, by the way, Brian, because we appreciate you. But your name is on the line too. And if our devices didn't work, then it would be hard for you to advocate for them. Okay, so it's all about performance, and it's all about pairing the right kind of technology and teaching each of our players exactly what they should be using, when they should be using it, so that when they're on the road, they can self-care. They have the ability, and it's not complicated. It's really like, you got some pain here, you got this device, you slap it right on there, you dial in this particular number or this particular heat, you relax, you watch the, you know, the game notes or the review of your performance, get into the mental game, tie it all together. You know, it's really amazing how it works. So the TheraPro has red light, curated red light therapy. It's got full spectrum infrared, and you can set that for a temperature and actually sleep on it through the night, because it has a 12-hour remote, so that you can actually be healing while you're sleeping, as well as everything else. It's got those 8 different wavelengths of PEMF. There's 5 different kinds of gemstones that have different wavelengths in it that also do healing as sort of earth energies. And then there is a embedded, I don't know whether you've used it or not, but there's actually a TENS unit that you can actually put paddles on, and you can stimulate with microcurrent. And you can have all these different things going on at the same time, or pair up different ones based on what you're going for. So it's got a lot of functions, and it's got a great value to the players.
Yeah, I've actually got mine. It's funny. I have mine. I'm on a chair in my office, and when you know, people will come over and they know what it is, they go, "Oh man!" And they sit down and they turn up the heat to like 120. They turn on the red light. They put the PMF on 9, so they're going through the cycle, and then they'll put the TENS unit on a place. I had a guy there today, was in here for an hour, and he goes, "Let me know every 20 minutes," and he moved the TENS units from like his you know, lower ab, sort of hip flexor area, to the shoulder, to the lower back, and he walked out of here. He's like, "Man." He goes, you know, kidding. He's like, "Hey, I don't know if I learned anything on the mental game, but I feel a lot better physically walking out of here. Thanks for letting me sit on that." You know, obviously joking, but it was cool to see, to your point, how you guys have been able to like combine technologies and recoveries into one place, because I have a separate red light. I have, you know, a TENS unit that I will use. I have multiple TENS units that I've used over the years, you know, and now just to have everything kind of in one place, that if I were a pro athlete going on a road trip, I can just roll it up, throw it in my suitcase or in a bag, throw it on the bus, and now I have this, you know, the recovery device to use. The other thing I love about the TheraFrost is, and this is part of why I've gotten behind it so much with the athletes that I work with, is like, these guys live in 3 different places. They live in South Carolina in the off season. They go to Arizona for spring training. They're playing in Cincinnati. Well, they can't obviously buy a gigantic, you know, cold plunge that's $10,000 and be able to bring it to all 3 places. And then if they get traded, they got to go somewhere. But the nice thing about the TheraFrost is, you deflate it, you put it in a backpack, and you put it in your car or your truck. And when your car or truck gets shipped from South Carolina to Arizona for spring training, your cold plunge is going with you. When it gets shipped to Cincinnati, it's going with you. So that if that's something that you get into that you like from a recovery standpoint, you now have that with you everywhere you go, except for when you're on the road, when you're playing, you know, in different hotels, or you're on the road and you're staying in different hotels, but half of the baseball season, you have it at your place. So I think it's definitely, you know, products that I have really enjoyed using, and ones that I stand behind. And I think, Robby, the last question I'd have for you here, I want to be respectful of your time, is, what is it that people need to know, or what question, like, should they be asking when they're looking at their recovery protocols, and what plunge to get, or what PMF to get, what sauna should I get? What questions should these guys be thinking about that maybe they're not asking?
Okay, well, we're kind of unusual because we're not salespeople. Like, I am the device developer. I make my own rules. And when we employ different technologies, or stacking different kinds of earth elements and different kinds of tech in one device, We have a very specific purpose that we're going for. And so, and I can modify that. We've modified the Thera 360 Plus close to 21 different times since we've released that product, because we keep dialing up. And like one thing that people have to be concerned about is another silent stressor called electromagnetic field, EMF, or ELF, which is extreme low frequencies. That's different than the PEMF we talked about before. This is actually the ones that are 5G, the 7G and 10G that the governments are now using on those micro towers. That actually kind of wears us down. And the other day I had a thought, Brian. Imagine you go to a stadium. How big is the stadium out by where you guys are now? How many people does it
Arizona
hold?
Cardinals will probably hold 75,000.
Okay, well, imagine you have to think that at least 80% of the people in that arena, when they've got it filled, is holding onto a cell phone.
At least.
Right? All those cell phones are tied to micro towers, bringing all of that energy to the arena, to the field. What do you think that energy is doing to that player on the field? How do you think it's affecting their brain?
I don't know. Never thought about that. Good question. You tell me. Never thought about that.
Well, I have the answer already for it. Right? It's slowing them down in the biggest way. And we've created a whole bunch of technology that the player can wear on their body. I'm actually got one right here on my throat. You see, it's like a little recovery patch. And that's got some energy now, because I've, being out here in Wisconsin, I caught a little cold, and now I'm just trying to go through recovery. Been talking a lot. And so now I've got a little patch here that's giving that area of my body, that part of my anatomy, some extra energy, some extra love. And it's allowing me to have a faster recovery. Well, we've created a protocol for those players that can give them a shield, protecting their bodies, keeping the integrity of their energy in place while they're being bombarded by all of these silent killers, the EMFs and so forth, the ELFs. So that's one thing for the guys to consider when they're looking at tech. I mean, I'd love for the guys to look at my stuff, but really it's kind of a big space. And we've curated various different frequencies that do very specific things. So we're taking a way more scientific approach to it, and a biological, physiological effect that we're looking for. We are, as we talked about in the TheraPro, combining different kinds of natural events, things that happen in nature, in our products. So when you go in that Thera 360 sauna, you're getting no EMF because we remediated for that. You're getting full spectrum infrared, which is the way that the nature delivers these wavelengths from the sun to the earth and all of nature. So we're actually mimicking a page out of the playbook from nature. I mean, that's the book. Next to the Bible, it's the oldest book on the planet, right? And so in these days, if the people listening were to go research, Google, like infrared, for instance, or infrared saunas, they're going to see the range between the far frequencies and the near. We've taken a full spectrum approach, which is the way that nature delivers it to the planet, thinking that each of these wavelengths do very particular things, and our bodies need all of them. So that's another thing to consider. We use all natural materials, so there's no chemical off-gassing. That's really important. And so we go through great pains. We've gone through the credentialing that FDA requires. That's also a big thing. So we've got the best bioavailable materials we've used. We have United Laboratories testing our electrical stuff. We use third-party test validation where none of the other competitors in our area are doing that. So in each of our devices on the Plunge, we've taken, a simple cryogenic type of response that can lower inflammation, lengthen your bio energetics. Your telomeres, one of the ways that we are able to actually look at your lifespan. So we can see that we are elongating your lifespan. How does that translate to a player? Well, their optimal health. We keep their acute injuries down. If they happen to have an injury, they'll recover much quicker. So that's really key. And that means that their life of their contract as a player is going to be lengthened, and their fame and their fortune. And more importantly, when they're done with their industry, whatever the game is, that they can come out and enjoy their celebrity, enjoy their families, enjoy their health, because their bodies aren't all beat up. And so I think that this is really important. And we keep that in mind in everything that we're doing at Therasage.
Love that. Robby, any parting thoughts? Maybe last last words for people that are listening to this, that are interested. Where can they find you on Instagram? Where can they can go to the website to check out the products? What's the best way for people, like the next step that are listening to this? What's the next best step for them to take, do you think?
Great. Well, the website's great. That's www.therasage.com, THERASAGE.com. We have a really active Instagram. It's one of the first things I do every morning, besides my morning ritual of prayer and getting into sauna. I look at my Instagram account. Why? Because those aren't paid advertisers. Those are guys like kind of you and I that are really excited about the Therasage products. They can kind of see that through their lifestyles. They bring their little kids in, their animals in. Like, these are validations to Robby, the device developer, that we're really getting into people's homes, getting into their lives and making a difference. So Therasage Infrared is our Instagram. We have a Facebook account. You can get to us through customer service, info@therasage.com, where we've got an 800 number. And we offer free coaching when you get any of our devices. You're welcome to just make an appointment. You'll speak to one of my health advisors, and they'll dial in the protocol or the goal based on your goal. Whether you're sick or you're just looking for optimal health, doesn't matter to us. We will dial in the protocol that serves you in a manicured way. And so we are creating what we think in an impersonal world, Brian. We're trying to really make it a personal experience with Therasage products. And really, it kind of irks me when you go to trade conferences and stuff, everybody's got the greatest of whatever they're selling, right?
Yeah, right.
But they're just interested in the sale. We're interested in you getting one of our products, using it to actually achieve your goal and really dial up your optimal health. And that's really where our game is. We're people over profit at Therasage. Yeah. And I really appreciate the opportunity of being on today, being with you.
Yeah. And I just want to echo that, what you said, because, anytime I pick up a phone and call, you guys answer, and it's not an out of over the country place that's answering for customer service. Like, I actually get you or somebody on your team who I've met, and they answer. And if I call them at 10 o'clock, they answer, because I got a client coming over here the next day and I need some help. What do you got for me? How should I run this? So, like, yeah, I love where you say, people over profits, and you guys live by that. And I don't know if that's a mission of Therasage, but it very well could be, because you live that way. And I just want to thank you for coming on here, and thank you for, helping me step into growth and being the best version of me through using your products and modalities, and the sauna and the PEMF mat and the TheraFrost cold plunge and the Thera H2O water that I have in my fridge outside of the office that I use all day. So, I actually take the reverse osmosis water, put it in the Thera H2O, and that's what I drink out of on a daily basis, So, thank you for helping me, hopefully extend my life to be able to be the best I can be for others, my family, my clients, etc. So, Robby, thank you for being here. Check them out, therasage.com. On Instagram, it's Therasage Infrared, and you can find all those in the show notes below. Robby, thanks for being here. Happy holidays. I hope you enjoyed that Mental Performance Mastery podcast with Robby Besner, the co-founder and product developer for Therasage. If you're interested in any of the products that were mentioned, check out the links below. You can get a discount as a member of our Mental Performance Mastery podcast community. You can also engage with Robby on Instagram and their website. All the links are below in the show notes. Thanks for being here. If you like the show, please make sure you leave a review, leave a comment, so that we can step into growth and become the best version of us here with Brian Cain Peak Performance and the Mental Performance Mastery podcast. Thanks for being here.